Hey YouTube, welcome to my channel, Coding with Colton, and today I want to talk about an interview experience that I had. It was for a company, I'm not going to mention their name out of respect, but I want to talk about my experience with interviewing. I want to talk about a real take-home project that I was given, and I'll show you the project as well as the code for that as well. So when it comes to the interview process in the company, I'll give you a little bit of background about what they do, but I'll keep it very generic. It was for a company that they focus on. They're a SaaS, they're a software as a service, and they focus on helping companies close more sales and having a really good feedback loop across departments. And so like that's the focus of the company. As far as the stack that they were using, yeah, React, Express, Node, Postgres, so modern stack that they're using over there. They've been around a couple years. So initially, I started my experience just applying on their careers page. They had a listing there for full stack dev. So I applied to that, and then I got a phone call from their CTO, and we had a conversation on the phone about half an hour, just talking about our experience. Um, yeah, mostly just my technical expertise, a little bit about the company, and so that was about 30 minutes, kind of basically just a phone screen. And then the next week, I came in for an in-person interview that was about 2 hours, and that consisted of a technical portion as well as like a meet the team. And the technical portion, that was basically, it was like a whiteboarding pseudocode type of interview. And then there were some actual statements and some SQL things that I needed to actually code out the queries for, but I'll talk about that. Basically, they gave me a scenario, and I had about 45 minutes to work it out. It was just a generic scenario of, hey, pretend that you're a granola company and you need to create a survey. What type of survey questions do you ask? So I had to write those all down on the board. Like why would you want those questions on the survey? And the goal was to be able to sell more granola bars. So just challenging your, thinking critically and, I guess your ability to think forward and have good empathy and understanding as far as like what should be accomplished. So I wrote those questions down, and then it was, okay, well, let's code the tables out. So I wrote what all the database tables would look like, all the different foreign keys and how things would hook up and hook together. And that was all just, basically pseudocode and writing things out on the table. And then when it came to the um, the later portions of the test, it was, okay, like what would the front end look like, and basically draw it out, and what kind of data and stuff would you need to pull for for all these tables. How would you display it in a graph? And so those are some of the things we talked about, and then we got into how would you write a SQL query to display that information on the graph. And it's been a minute since I've been practicing my raw SQL query, so I got a little stuck up on that one. But I think overall I did pretty well. And then afterwards, it was basically just to meet the team. So that was basically the technical portion that I was given there. I met with the owner, I met with the CTO again, and they gave me. This is where I got the take-home project. So the take-home project was. It was only supposed to take like 2 to 4 hours, but honestly it took way longer than that. And I'll talk about that in a second here. But yeah, basically the goal, and I'll actually just show you the project. So I had to reclone this so you couldn't tell what company I did this for. But yeah, this was the project. Didn't have to be anything fancy. Just had to have a really simple UI. And it comprised of using a front end, back end, and then basically an API like a database. So basically what you have to do is you had to get a list of 7,000 users, and the API that they have you use is this random user generator, this random user.me. All it does is just give you like random sets of data. Like when I say random, I mean random. You can use a seed, which I'll talk about in a second, but that's basically what it does. So you need to get 7,000 user entries, and it needs to be performant. And then you need to be able to click on a user and then get additional information about them. So that was basically what they had me do. And now I know that this looks pretty simple, but honestly, when it comes to like figuring out like how to make this work in a way that's logical, that was actually quite difficult because of how the API itself works. So basically, yeah, you build out a React front end, and then you will build out a server. I'll show you the code. So you build out, oh, this is not what I wanted to do. Let me, here we go. All right, cool. So here's the front end code for that. And so basically it's, this is all in React. So basically, you build out your front end code, and I keep it really simple. I just had like an app page and some very, very simple state. I didn't use Redux or anything for this. And then the back end code honestly was just one. I'll show you. Then my server code was just, honestly, it was just one route basically, if you know anything about Node.js and the back end. So it was super simple. I just used one route, and there was a reason for that. And so basically, when you go and grab all this user data, what you have to do is, if you want the data to be consistent, because this API only generates random information, it's completely random unless you use a seed value. So I ended up using a seed value for it. But the thing with that, with using seeds, right here it talks about using a seed, basically just means that you're going to get consistent data when you're getting results. But the thing with that is you have no way of going back at a later time and grabbing a specific user, because everything is like random, right? So even if you're trying to go back and get a specific user, there's no like specific user ID. I mean, when I say there's no way to do this, there's no way for you to go back and try to grab one single user. So what I actually had to end up doing was grabbing 1,000 users at a time, and then grabbing all of the information that I was going to need at once for those 1,000 users, because you can't go back and make another call to the API and say, okay, here's a user ID and the username, go fetch the rest of the data. You can't do that. Like 99% of APIs have the ability to do that, but this one did not, so that made it very difficult. And basically, I made those calls to the API from the back end to kind of simulate like a database. The API was kind of basically the database, but it didn't behave like a database at all. So that made it extremely challenging to understand how the API works, and to realize like, hey, you can't grab a single user, so that was honestly what took up most of my time to figure this out. And so basically all I did is every time you click on a new page, like click page 4 here. This is being so slow. Why is this not working? Let's refresh. Here we go. Okay, there we go. So yeah, so grab like page 4 or 3 or whatever page you want to grab, and then it'll grab basically 1,000 entries in the seeded list. But again, you have to grab like all the info that you need for all those 1,000 users all at once. And so that's a way that I found to make it a little bit more performant, instead of trying to grab 7,000 all at once, to just grab 1,000 at a time. So yeah, that was basically the project that I had to do. And definitely took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. It took me 7, maybe 8 hours to do it all, get it hosted and everything. And then afterwards, I had basically like a code review with another developer like 2 days after I submitted it to them. And the developer seemed like he was pretty impressed with my solution. He said it was similar to something that he had done. And so that was good. But yeah, I asked him, how long it had taken, some of the other applicants to do this project. And he said like 8 hours was like pretty standard. 7, 8 hours is pretty normal. So just be aware of that. Sometimes, when you're doing, these take-home projects, a company might say, oh, hey, it's, it'll just take you like a little bit of time, but like the truth is it will take you probably a lot longer than that. So that is something to keep in mind. And that was basically my interview experience. Heard back a couple weeks later, they wanted to go with someone a little bit more senior, and that's cool. but I definitely learned some things from just basically from that interview process. And I also learned it's also important to ask some good questions and just get a good feel for the company, because some companies, they might want to do like a salary position, and this is something that I asked as well. Basically what the hour expectations were, and so like 60 plus hours, were basically expected a lot of the time. Is basically what I took from that conversation. So you have to decide if that's worth it to you or not. So you have to just be aware, and it's important to just ask those questions and just be direct. And Yeah, and just just do your best. So that was my experience doing an interview, and I hope that you have hopefully gained some valuable insight and picked up some gems from my experience. Again, my name was Colton. Thank you for watching my channel, and good luck out there.